All right then, it's 2 minutes past 12, or 11 in the UK and 12 in Sweden where I am. So we will kick off today's webinar, Setting Up for Success with Microsoft 365 Copilot, Creating a More Inclusive, Productive Workplace. Hi everyone, and thank you all for joining this webinar. My name is Patrick Wemberg. I'm from Nexer Worklife, which is part of Nexer Enterprise Applications in Sweden. I am joined today by my colleagues, Andrew Rickards and Lee Valentine, who both work for Nexer Digital in the UK. We work very closely with our friends at Nexer Digital in the UK, especially on projects around inclusion, accessibility in the Microsoft stack. Nexer on its own is a global Microsoft Cloud Solutions partner, and we focus on everything in the Microsoft 365 cloud, really. Lately, we have naturally all been diving into how Copilot and AI specifically can make the workplace more inclusive and productive with the help of these services. And today, the three of us will share some different insights and practical examples of how it can and perhaps even should be implemented in your organizations. After my general introduction to Microsoft 365 Copilot itself, I will hand it over to Andrew and then to Lee from Nexer Digital, who will talk more about the preparations you should do and show you some practical examples on inclusion when using the platform in the workplace. Feel free to use the Q&A functionality. If you have any questions throughout today's webinar, just pop them in there. We have a Q&A session wrapping up at the end where we will address these questions that I hope you have. If you want to post anonymously, there is a small toggle you can use if you don't want to share your name with the other attendees. If you do not post anonymously, your name will be shown. This is also recorded, and we will distribute this to everyone who has signed up for the webinar when we have edited it and made it available in a public place somewhere. So, just to start off with a bit of a background. As you all know, the big buzz around AI has skyrocketed over the past years since OpenAI launched ChatGPT, which was the first big service that became available to all private individuals out there on the internet. They also launched an image generation service called DALL-E, which also got quite popular really quick because it can allow you to generate images that are royalty-free and that you can use in any way you want in your marketing, for instance. The thing with ChatGPT is that they actually hit 100 million users in just under 2 months. And that is the fastest any online service has ever gathered 100 million users of their service. And it's just wild. And if you look back at like the introduction of the mobile phone and things that everyone takes for granted today, that took years to accumulate that amount of users in any service. And many of us are already using these generative AI tools in our daily work. Sometimes we might not even know that we are. Chances are that you or any of your colleagues are using them as well. And that's mainly because you've probably seen the perks of having an assistant or an AI assistant next to you in the workplace, helping you do your work. However, when you're working with AI, it's really, really crucial to do it responsibly. And that means you have to scrutinize the results it produces. You need to ensure that none of your company data leaks out of your own organization. I mean, we all have our IPs and our own company secrets that we want to keep safe. That's the reason we have a business, and that's the way to generate revenue in our businesses. So keeping the data safe is really, really important. We also need to provide our employees with these tools in a safe way so that they can use them, knowing that they don't risk destroying your own company. Andrew will talk a bit more about this in depth after my general introduction to the platform on its own. So, like I mentioned, AI is probably already being used by someone in your workplace, if not you're using it yourself. And the reason is it's offering a lot of benefits. There are, though, a few challenges that all of these organizations that are introducing AI in any way need to tackle. I've put down 4 different things that I think are important here. And the first one is engagement. Employees should be engaged in their work and enjoy the workplace. We all know that people who enjoy their work do better work. It comes natural. It kind of goes without saying. We also need quality in the workplace. Employees should produce high quality work. Quality is important for our businesses. It's important for the employees on their own. A better product is easier to sell. It's simple math, really. And to do all this, we also should have a productive workforce. People need to be efficient. They need to meet their obligations, both to their company and to their clients. Delivering great results is a key to success for both the individual, again, and the business on its own. And we also really need to think about inclusivity. Everyone must have access to the information they need to excel in their roles. If it's locked away or even hard to find, it hinders both the individual and the organization to thrive. And all of these depend on having the right tools available for the people in your business. And AI tools are a real big benefit here. I mean, ultimately, it's all about saving time. Generative AI can help by boosting productivity. It can improve quality through, for instance, proofreading of your materials that you produce. It can assist with content creation. It can make it easier to find stuff. And all these small bits and pieces can then enhance the engagement of your coworkers. So it goes in a big circle. When work gets done quickly and efficiently, it's more enjoyable for the employees and the people in the business. It also frees up time for employees to learn new skills. And with these new skills that might improve both your business and add value to your customers, and most of all, will allow your people in the workplace to grow in their roles and develop and move forward. So, I mean, it's all a big circle where everything ties together in the end. And just back to AI, even though everything started with the ChatGPT service that made it publicly available to everyone, Microsoft has naturally come out with their own set of tools to gear it towards their customer in their different work environments. Microsoft calls their AI services Copilots because it assists you in your daily tasks, just like a Copilot helping the pilot fly a plane. And instead of just one big tool with a chat interface like ChatGPT, Microsoft instead offers a bunch of different Copilots that are each designed for specific needs. I've just put down a few examples here. There are loads more, and you can make your own Copilots as well. But everything started out with GitHub Copilot, which is the developer's best friend that makes coding easier. Why reinvent the wheel when someone already has made it? I mean, grab a code snippet, tell it what you want, and you don't have to put in those 16 lines of code just to have a button that you can click, for instance. And then we have the personal Copilot that you have access to in either the Edge sidebar if you're using Microsoft Edge, the browser, or you can browse to the Copilot web interface as well. It's available to anyone who's using the internet, really. You need a Microsoft account to sign into to make it a bit more easy to use, but it's free. It's more like a supercharged search engine that answers questions as well about the content that it finds for you. And then we have Copilot with EDP, which is the same engine as the personal one, but with enterprise data protection built into it. So this can only be accessed if you have a corporate Microsoft 365 license in the workplace. And with the EDP comes the enterprise data protection that I mentioned. And that means that your data stays within your domain. It never leaves the sphere of you as a user, and it's never used to train the model or make the AI in the background better. So it's Microsoft's way of saying, we'll keep your data safe. You can be assured that if you use this within the workplace, logged on with your company account, you don't have to be afraid that anything you put into the AI is leaked and can be used by anyone else. And then, of course, there's the Microsoft 365 Copilot as well. And that's what we're going to focus a bit more on in today's session. We're going to look into how it fits into the modern workplace and how it can promote inclusiveness and accessibility. Microsoft 365 Copilot on its own is an advanced AI-powered assistant designed to seamlessly integrate with all the different popular Microsoft 365 apps that you use in your daily work. Everything from Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, in Teams, for instance, if you host meetings or if you're part of meetings. It's built on the same generative AI and large language model as ChatGPT. And if you're interested in exactly what model it's using right now, it's the 4.0 model. It interacts directly with the organization's own data, which makes it even more vital in an organization. And it makes this data more accessible, which in the end transforms how people create new materials, how they communicate, and how they collaborate internally within the organization. And all this, of course, leads to a few different benefits and also loads and loads of different features within the platform. I've just jotted down a few here because there's so many, but I mean, real-time intelligence, for instance. Whether you're drafting emails, if you're brainstorming about something, searching for information from your vast data store you have within your company, or if you're creating new marketing material based on a new product development cycle, Copilot is like a creative partner that helps you kickstart your tasks. It offers real-time insights to anything you're doing to make your work experience better in the workplace every day. It improves collaboration as well. In Teams, for instance, it can give you real-time meeting transcriptions during a meeting. It can highlight key points that has been discussed in a meeting. And in the next iteration of Copilot in Teams that is coming soon, it will also even suggest follow-up questions based on the meeting discussions during the meeting. So you don't have to wait until after to get your key points summed up and then ask questions. It will actually analyze the discussion as it's going and suggest follow-up questions based on what people said, which is quite amazing, according to me. Personalized assistance as well. By leveraging the data you have in your Microsoft 365 platform, you get personalized recommendations based on your current tasks you're working with and also past activities, meetings, chats, teams you're part of, documents that have been updated. You can chat with your Copilot in your natural language. Ask it to summarize different documents, gather data regarding a project, make a slide in PowerPoint from these notes. And you can do this either by typing if you prefer that, or if you have a headset on, you can speak to it as well. So you can just talk to your Copilot and it will generate data for you. That's just a quick summary of what the Copilot for Microsoft 365 platform is. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Andrew Rickards, who is going to share what you should consider before enabling Copilot in your organization to make it safe. Here you go, Andrew.
Let me click the magic button. That's great. Thanks, Patrick. And hi, everyone. It's great to be here. We're now going to walk through some of the key areas of a Microsoft 365 Copilot rollout. There's a lot more we'd cover during an implementation, but we wanted to show the flow that we generally use for a Copilot project. Now, we would generally start with awareness. So this is building excitement in the organization and engaging with those who can help push the project forward. Having key people on board makes the process smoother. During discovery, we're looking at how we're set up, what information we have, who can access it, and how it is currently managed. We look at who would benefit from a Copilot license through reaching out to the business and individuals, along with the creation of a persona, which you can then use to identify who would have those benefits. We then look at what changes are needed and implement those during the discovery. This could be a new technology, such as Microsoft Purview, to help with data governance, enabling new processes, planning out how to manage licenses, and engaging with everyone to look at their digital content, checking access, removing legacy files, and so on. We'd always recommend capturing key metrics too, as these can be used as a baseline to track your progress as time goes on. For example, we've seen a 10% reduction in Teams and SharePoint sites within a few days of initial communications. With over 3,000 teams, that was a sizable change. Launch is all about making sure those with a license are able to use it in the best way. This could be through training, example prompts to help surface information, or support with documents they are working on. Using a tool such as Microsoft Engage helps to build a community too, where others can help support each other. Then we're looking to continuous improvement. So how is Copilot being used? Ensuring people experience the benefits it brings, and regular outreach with tips to help everyone. Data is one of the most important and valuable assets for any business, but it comes with quite a lot of challenges. As Copilot works with your existing data and can generate new data, you need to make sure that Copilot has access to the right things. If you still have on-premise data that is crucial for you, consider moving that to the cloud if you want to use Copilot with that particular data set. If not, it simply can't see it, and therefore access it to surface answers and responses. Similar if you have files in your personal OneDrive that others should see. This could be a project plan or another type of file. They can't actually get to it unless it's in a shared space because it's locked to your own access. Almost all tenants struggle with redundant, old and trivial data that might affect the results generated by Copilot. Once your data is in the cloud, you need to make sure that it is of good quality. Focus on the accuracy, consistency and reliability. Poor data quality can lead to errors and poor decisions, and I'm pretty sure nobody wants that. Make sure you know what data you have and only keep the data you need in an accessible place. There's no need to hoard data just because it's nice to have it. If you want to keep it, move it to an archive or lock it down so Copilot simply can't access it for those who might be able to query. Configure retention policies to specify how long your data should be kept. For example, you can apply policies such as keep for 3 years or delete after 6 months. Retention policies can also trigger disposition reviews so that it's manually scrutinized before it's deleted. Like I said, Copilot will work with the data you have access to. And if you have 3 different versions of your IT policy, for example, Copilot won't know which version is the current one. It will most likely make an educated guess, but it can't be sure it's the correct and up-to-date version. Adding metadata and tags to your content makes it easier for Copilot to find the right data. This improves the accuracy of that data immensely. Working with just enough access is key. This means that users just have access to what they need to perform their tasks. Transparency is good, but it doesn't mean that everyone should have access to everything. And I'm pretty sure R&D would agree with me on that. Run a risk assessment. Go through your teams and SharePoint sites. Start with the critical ones and make sure they have the right members. Use private teams instead of public teams and implement periodic access reviews to make sure the sites and teams have the correct members over time, not just right now. Implement security labels to protect both individual documents, libraries, email, sites, teams. Even Loop, you can now have sensitivity labels. These can be implemented in a way that they restrict external access from accessing certain teams. Copilot will honor the labels when creating new content. So if data is classified to begin with, Copilot's generated content will also be classified with the same label and access. Copilot is designed to help users discover and use the data sources that are relevant and useful for their work. Copilot will not find more than you already can find with a search. It just makes it so much easier. Once Copilot is live in your organization, it's important to assess its usage, along with making sure the changes identified during the discovery phase are being used. We'd recommend, for example, every team has at least 2 owners, as this makes sure there's someone who owns the information held in it and able to manage access. Key to the success of a Copilot rollout, though, is that everyone is able to use the tool to help them in their day-to-day activities, surfacing information that's helpful to them and making their lives easier. I'd like to now hand over to Lee, who is going to share examples of how Copilot can support inclusion in your organization.
Yes, thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone watching. In this section, we'll explore how Copilot can support inclusion at work, including some cool demonstrations of Copilot's out-of-the-box capabilities. As an introduction, I'll use a few minutes to talk about some of the things we do at Nexa, which ensures that the research that we do in this area has value. Some of the resources we have built up to support inclusivity at Nexa include employee resource groups, manual of me, and opportunities where we openly share some of our lived and learned experiences. Each of these contributes in different ways to ensure that we develop a greater understanding of the people we work with, including our clients. The employee resource groups are employee-led, aimed at fostering a diverse, inclusive workplace aligned with the organisations we're part of. Access at Nexa is a disability discovery focus group. Caring is our cultural and religious inclusion at Nexa group. Still Proud has been set up by members of our LGBTQIA community and its allies. I've also listed some of the recent achievements from each of the groups which we're very proud of. We're always very happy to talk about things with anybody who's interested. A bit more about the Manual of Me. This is a user manual which outlines our personal working styles, preferences, and any active needs we might want to share with the teams that we're working with. It serves as a guide for colleagues to understand how we might make adjustments to ensure we can collaborate effectively with each other, fostering better communications and teamwork. This type of content underpins our open and inclusive culture at Nexa and can also be used by Copilot, as I'll show you a bit later. We also believe that openly sharing lived and learned experiences help develop empathy and broaden our perspectives, ultimately leading to a more inclusive workplace. Employees are given a supportive platform where we can share our experiences and learnings. We also welcome external facilitators to deliver workshops on specialised subject matter. Some of these sessions have evolved into conference talks, which go down really well in the technology, design, and accessibility communities. So now I'll talk a little bit about how we bring all this together. Thinking about how to describe an impairment or an access need, there are many different ways that one can categorise them, but instead of using specific labels like deaf or blind, it's more helpful to think of this in terms of a broader category. For example, an auditory impairment could be a high frequency hearing loss for which a hearing aid can help. On the other hand, a person could be profoundly deaf and require adjustments such as accommodating a sign language interpreter, possibly even providing written instructions or transcriptions. So rather than using a blanket term or label as deaf, we can apply broader descriptions such as an ability to perceive or process auditory information. Also, recently we've been focusing on mental health as an impairment. By bringing this to the table, we acknowledge the importance for its inclusion. We do this despite the lack of strict legal guidelines around how to tackle some of the issues presented. Through researching the collection of artifacts I've mentioned previously, we have applied our learnings to develop a diverse set of personas which can be adapted to 4 different technologies and services. For the purpose of this talk, we are using Microsoft Copilot 365 as our chosen technology. Firstly, I'll explain how I've laid out this information. At the top of the slide, we include a simple description of the role and conditions faced by this person or persona. To the left, you can gain an understanding of some of the barriers and difficulties faced when working within 365 in a team environment. And on the right-hand side is how Copilot's out-of-the-box features can help overcome some of those barriers and pain points. In this example, an auditory impairment, a lot of our use cases are around intelligent and responsible use of transcriptions, recordings, and meeting notes. In the case of visual impairments, more accessible enterprise searching, scanning long email chains, drafting content, and intelligent meeting recaps. with cognitive impairments, that's consuming detailed technical documentation, creating ideas from scratch, assessing the credibility of data sources. Sensory motor impairments, Copilot can help with voice-enabled prompting, real-time assistance during the meetings, building quick and easy presentations so they can remain focused on producing rich and valuable content. Neurodiversity, Copilot can support in overcoming sensory overload, can help build more structure in day-to-day planning, and help focus on prioritizing workloads. Generalized anxiety disorder can help. Copilot can help overcome fear of miscommunications, struggle to get started on a task for fear of making mistakes, general fatigue for information overload, and anxiety-induced memory loss. So these are just simplified summaries for the purpose of this presentation. We've collected a large number of use cases for each of these, which we will be more than happy to talk more about in the future. So this brings me on to the demonstrations. So demonstration number 1, Copilot can give inspiration and support when faced with the pressures of starting from a blank slate. Here, I would ask Copilot to brainstorm ideas, and I would briefly describe what I would like to include. Copilot generates 6 suggestions at the time, so I would just simply generate more ideas until I'm satisfied there's a reasonable starting point for my team. So here, I've just posted. The results are quite nice. From here, my team will then be able to add further ideas if they wish to do so, and we can have a discussion which takes place, and we can refine the notes here. Following this, we can then categorize the content, which is not just an excellent time-saving feature, but can take away a lot of the cog load from day-to-day activities of a workshop facilitator. This means that they can focus more on valuable role-related activities. And once I'm happy with the end of the session, I can then ask Copilot to provide a summary of the notes. I would then read through the description myself and verify that the information is correct and expand upon it when required. That's the end of the first demonstration. Moving on to number 2, immediately after that workshop session, after refining the meeting notes, I would then like to send a follow-up email to the workshop attendees. So there are some situations and scenarios where people might struggle to quickly convey information in an appropriate tone. I would simply ask Copilot to help me draft an email. I'd give it a few lines on what I would like it to include. Here, I would like to thank the team for attending and let them know the next steps. Copilot can then generate the email for me and give me the option to adjust the length and the tone, or I could completely rewrite this if I don't like the result that Copilot gives me. So once I am happy with this, I will then move over to the loop component and copy the component from the whiteboard into the email. This is a really nice series of steps of a workflow, which ensures that the information being shared can be easily accessed by all participants, reducing the stress and the cog load of the frequent disruption of having to search through files and folders for each piece of information. In my next example, I have recently presented a show and learn session on inclusive meetings. I have a follow-up action to work with the team on how we might want to implement some of the guidance. Using Copilot within Loop, I can refer to the presentation itself and generate the first draft plan to implement the go-tos. Once the results are generated, I would usually cross-reference the information against the content and iterate when required to do so. Then once I've made sure that the content is suitable, I'll then ask Copilot to restructure this plan into a table so that it's easier for my team to digest. Obviously, I would expand on the content and iteration methods here, but this is a great example of how Copilot can help on occasions where people might struggle to strike the right balance between the stresses of a heavy workload and processing large amounts of information in a short period of time. Then I'll move on to the next. So for this example, from speaking to a group of neurodiverse participants, one of their biggest challenges is to keep on top of their day-to-day schedule. Here you will see how Copilot can help with this. I'll start my working day by asking Copilot to share what's in my schedule. It will condense the list of content. It will condense the contents of my calendar into a simple list of time-stamped meetings, including the topics and the people attending. I can then select any of these meetings and ask Copilot to help me prepare for it. In this particular example, usually the results will include the details of the agenda and links to sources of relevant information, but in this example, I've deliberately created an empty meeting invitation because this is quite common in most people's day-to-day working life and can sometimes trigger stress-related anxiety when you wonder what the meeting's about. Let me show you what happens here. So in this example, Copilot has supported me by pulling out resources from Viva Learning, and this is the tool I wasn't even aware of until I recorded this demo. Copilot points me towards related articles which I might be interested in exploring further. This is a very useful thing to have in organisations which have a structured library of learning resources, or perhaps a large repository where regulatory documentation is kept, allowing more independence for its users to self-serve. If I want to do so, I can also have a back and forth conversation where Copilot can provide me with contextual advice and perhaps assist me with my preparation. So, going through some of the steps in can save the user having to spend time and energy, context switching and searching for information. It generally allows them to be much more organised and independent, so they don't have to go around asking people where to access the files or documents, and it can help them focus more on interesting and valuable role-based activities. My last demo, on occasions where I'm working with someone new for the first time, I find it very useful to refer to our manual of me to build more of an understanding of my colleague. So from here, I will point Copilot directly to the manual for a targeted search for information on that user. Once I've got the results I'm looking for, I'm then presented with suggestions for follow-up questions. As you can see here, from some of the citations, some of the information is based on a web search. This demonstration sort of shows how Copilot utilizes a range of both internal and external sources in a single place. So I hope you found these demonstrations quite useful. I feel like they provide a nice overview of Copilot's out-of-the-box capabilities, which can support inclusion. I will end my section of the webinar by sharing the main message which drives this research. At Nixa, we're very passionate about implementing AI capability responsibly so that everybody can access these tools on a level playing field. I'll pass this back to Patrick now, who will take over to provide a summary of the session.
Thank you, Lee. That was very, very interesting to watch. So I'm going to try to summarize what we've gone through in our different parts of the Copilot journey, and starting off with Andrew's bits and pieces. Taking good care of your data is very, very important to make the most out of it, because everything boils down to data in the end. But it's also how you handle the data and use it to overcome difficulties and have successful outcomes in your different projects and tasks. You also need to manage the full life cycle of the content to get the best quality. You don't want multiple versions of stuff, because any AI, doesn't matter if it's Copilot or ChatGPT or Azure AI bots or whatever, if it doesn't know which data is the most current one, it just will not work for you. It will make it much, much harder. So optimize your data to get the best results. Secure your data with or without Copilot. It doesn't matter if you have AI or any other tool. Data security is paramount in the workplace. It's crucial to protect your information and your IPs from unauthorized access, loss, or even corruption. Regardless of any tool you are using, the data is your business and it's very valuable for you. So make sure you keep it secure. Copilot on its own can save you a lot of time by letting you work on other skills. It can automate your routine tasks. It can provide you with this real-time intelligence assistance. It can free up your time, allow you to focus on developing new skills or tackle more complex challenges that you might not have time for otherwise. Copilot on its own provides this immediate, actionable insight and assistance based on your data and the context at the moment. This will allow your people to interact with the data in a more dynamic way and enable them to make more and better informed decisions quickly and more efficiently every day at work. Engagement is also key. It is crucial in the workplace because it leads to higher productivity. It leads to a much better employee retention, and we all want that. It improves customer satisfaction in the end, and it also enhances innovation within the workplace. Having engaged employees that are more committed, motivated, and that makes them also more likely to contribute positively to the organization's success at whole. And also don't forget about inclusiveness and accessibility. This is really, really important. By understanding your workforce, you can create a much more inclusive and accessible workplace for everyone. And this will benefit the whole organization, not just the individuals on their own. I'll just put this up here in case you've missed it. The European Accessibility Act, the EAA, it's a EU directive that will become law in 2025. This also affects England, even though they're out of the EU now. The main goal of the EAA is to ensure that digital products and services are accessible to everyone, especially those with disabilities. And this means that, websites, mobile apps, ebooks, and any other digital interface really will need to be designed in a way that allows people with different abilities to use them without facing any barriers. The directive will push companies and organizations, no matter if they're private or corporate or government, to consider accessibility from the very beginning of their design processes. And this will in turn lead to a more inclusive digital design and environment for everyone out there. And by using Microsoft 365 Copilot, that can actually play a significant role and help create a more accessible and inclusive workspace. By leveraging its capabilities, companies can reduce the strain on their teams while also promoting a more diverse and inclusive culture. That's about it from the webinar today. So thank you very much. I hope you found the webinar very helpful. I will now turn over to the Q&A, and I see that we have a few questions that has been entered in there, and I have actually answered 2 of them by text already. The first one was, can you make Copilot only take information from your own files rather than looking elsewhere for data, like ChatGPT does? And I've actually written the answer. Well, I will read it out as well. If you use the main interface of Microsoft 365 Copilot, it will automatically have access to all information that you have access to within the Microsoft 365 sphere. But if you have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, you also get access to Copilot in OneDrive that only interacts with your own data in your own OneDrive, and you can have that summarized and gather information and process materials for you while using OneDrive on the web. A second question was if we were sharing these slides afterwards, and I'm uncertain about the slide deck on its own, but we will distribute the recording as I said in the beginning, and that will be done in the coming days. Just saw another question that I'm going to publish right now that popped in, and I think maybe that is something that you could answer. I'm not sure if it will publish. Try to. Anyway, I will just say it straight out. So, Andrew, where do we start with this for a perfect rollout of Copilot?
Good question. Good question. So, I think this all comes down to your users' needs, and your teams. So, how can Copilot benefit your people? I think Lee has clearly shown that Copilot 365 can benefit pretty much anybody, but especially those who might have other needs to help them surface information. That definitely leads into engagement. So it can definitely help build excitement by communicating benefits and goals. So making sure people know what Copilot can do and how it can help them clearly and frequently, and as soon as you can, bring in stakeholders that can help communicate those benefits to teams, and representation for various departments to ensure their buy-in and support. So looking back at the slides Lee shared, you can see how we can build our personas to help identify who would benefit the most as well.
Perfect.
Hope that answers the question.
Yep. Another one that popped in is, do we need to install something to get access to Copilot in the Microsoft Office program, such as Outlook? And a quick answer to that one, I'll just do that myself. Yeah, you do need the Microsoft 365 Copilot license for Copilot to surface within your productivity tools within the Microsoft suite. So that is an add-on license from Microsoft that you need. Let's see, there's someone else asked a question as well. I think maybe Lee could answer this one. How do we involve our workforce in configuring a Copilot rollout that works for everyone and leaves no one behind? That's a really good question.
Yeah, that's a really good question. You could start by engaging your workforce daily and often. Involve a diverse representation from various departments in the planning phase. Use Copilot champions to boost engagement with demonstrations and involve everyone. Assess access needs, build out some valuable use cases off the back of those. Identify pain points. Map workflows to identify where impact can be made without disrupting established processes. Provide training and feedback, establish feedback mechanisms, gather insights and make iterative improvements, set up a community, perhaps Microsoft Engage, which would allow the teams to share successes and offer support from each other.
Good. I think there's one last question as well. I think we still have a few minutes, so yeah, we will take that as one. I think maybe this one is for you as well, Andrew. In your experience, what are the most complex parts of a rollout?
Okay, so I think from the projects I've been involved with, it's getting to the guts of what information people have. There's information stored in many places, we've seen, so it's and how that is then used and accessed in an organization. So for example, you might have multiple SharePoint sites already, mix that with your on-premise files, people storing files locally. I've got files on my desktop that probably shouldn't be there, and I imagine I'm not the only one who has that as well. So it's bringing all that information into a manageable structure, making sure people can access it in the right way, and make sure the right people can access it, because there's some things you don't want everyone to access, as we mentioned earlier. So yes, it's all down to actually what information you have, how you're storing it, how it's used, and how it should then be surfaced later on, and how it can be used as part of a Copilot 365 solution. So yeah, but all that ultimately helps people actually get to the information that makes a difference to them.
Yeah, it's all about the data and the just enough access, as you said before. So yeah, that is a very good insight. And that's what we see with almost any client, really, when they're going into these projects. That's where you have to begin to make a successful rollout of it. And that is the most complex part as well, definitely. No more questions in the Q&A, and I think we're on time as well, which is good. Thank you so much, both Lee and Andrew, for having me today. It was really interesting, and I hope we can have more collaboration in the future. Thank you to everyone who's listening as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Amy Suba. I'm going to swap to the last slide, where you also have QR codes if you want to connect with either me, Lee, or Andrew on LinkedIn and continue discussing these very important subjects. Feel free to reach out. We're always there and always eager to talk to you and help your organizations move forward with inclusivity, accessibility, and AI every day. Thank you so much.
Cheers, everyone.